Hello, we've got a curious example for us to go through today. This is going to be looking at how we can make a comparison when we don't just have one spot that we want to compare, but we've got a trend. So we're going to look at an example that I have of me going around a bicycle track on a bike at different tire pressures and working out which one of those is going to get me to go faster. Now the tricky part of it is each time we go around that bike track, we're putting in a slightly different amount of power, and that really is where it becomes a bit more complicated to work out. But we're going to show you how you can do that now, and also how you can apply that to different scenarios where the same kinds of tricky elements come into play. So if we dive into Excel now, I've got this is a recording of the data that I had from yesterday, and what happened is every time I went around a lap, I took the average power and then the speed that I got from that lap, average power, speed, and so on. And I did that at two different tire pressures, firstly at 90 psi and then secondly at 120 psi. So when we make this comparison, what we really need to do is, rather than just have a point, just a power and a speed, we were going to have a line, and we can compare the two different lines, the two different trends that we have for each of those tire pressures. So when we do that in Excel, we create what's called a scatter chart, and to do that we need to just change the way that this data looks just slightly. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the speed kilometre an hour. We're going to have that as the 90 psi column, and then we're going to add another column up here for the 120 psi. So I'll do that now. So if I say speed at 90 psi, and then add another column up here, speed at 120 psi, and if I just move all of these figures here for 120 psi over to this column here, we can now get rid of column A, so we'll do that. And now we can chart this in a scatter plot, in an XY plot, and we'll be able to add a trend line and see what the difference is between those two tire pressures. So if I go to the Insert menu, into the chart, the chart that I want is, if I go into All Charts, is an XY chart, and that's the one I want there. So I'll click on OK. Now, just to make it clear as to what I'm showing here, I'm going to add some titles. Axis title primary, and the axis titles there. Okay, so what we have on this axis is the power. So this is the amount of power that I'm putting into the pedals as I ride around each one of the laps. And this one here is the speed in kilometers an hour. So speed. I guess that should be power in watts as well. Okay, so what we're going to do now is add a trend line. So firstly, we've got the speed at 90 psi, and if I just click on one of those values there, I can right click and then go add trend line. And I'll do the same with the 120 psi. Click on that and then right click and add trend line. So you can see with this already that there's a bit of a difference that's starting to shine through, and that the tyres, when they're pumped up at 90 psi, actually go a little bit faster for the same power than when they are pumped up at 120 psi. So interesting for me. So where this might be relevant for you, or firstly, if I'm riding into town, I want to ride my bike, it'd be better to have my tyres at 90 psi, because for the same power output, I'm going around about 1 kilometre an hour faster. So I'm going to get there quicker for the same amount of effort. Very useful for me. So where this might be applicable for you, you could have an example of where you might know that you sell more ice cream on a warm day than you do on a cold day. So you get a trend, so much like you do here, but you might want to know what happens if you have, say, 2 staff on the store versus 4 staff on the store. So we've got a relationship between a couple of different figures, a couple of different things, but you want to know what happens if you change a third thing. This technique will let you do that. So I hope that's been useful for you. It's been something that has been I can't believe how quickly I can explain this now, because this really bugged me for literally over a year as I tried to figure out how I could measure something like this. And now that I know how to do it, it's applicable to lots of different areas, and this could be something that'll make a big difference for you. If you've got any questions or like any help with this, drop me a line below and I'll get back to you. All the best. Enjoy. Understand My Data is a New Zealand business that helps you make decisions using your own data and artificial intelligence. It lets you see things you haven't been able to spot before.